I got into trouble this past weekend. I was more or less accused of a crime. Yeah. I'm at the supermarket. I'm at the deli. I'm getting stuff from the deli. So I'm standing there and I'm just waiting. I'm wearing the baby. And there is a woman who's getting her meats and stuff, and the person behind the counter calls her over and says, "Hey, would you like to try a piece or something?" And so she walks over, leaving the cart next to me. Well, in the top of the cart is her purse. I didn't even notice it, but all of a sudden she becomes very aware that she abandoned her purse next to a stranger. So she's trying not to be accusatory, but this is what happens. She looks back and she goes, "Oh," and then she kind of goes like this, walked to the cart, and then I don't know if she thinks I'm blind, but turned her back and started rummaging through it looking for something I might have taken.
Just putting on her lipstick.
Yeah. We're just waiting for her to, tell me something was missing. I was like blame it on the baby. I mean, and you look at me with the baby. I mean, would you think that this guy's going to steal something from you? Let me show you a picture. Does this look like the face of a criminal? Okay, this is a bad example. How about that one?
I like the live on that one.
Yeah. See? Yeah, she's a happy baby. We're not stealing anybody's money. I'm too busy taking care of her to worry about somebody else's purse. Oh, well. On the surface, paper is paper. I mean, it's all the same, right? I mean, before we just kind of turn the page on this, though, I think that we need to get into the little itty-bitty details of what makes a particular paper good for, let's say, dry media, or wet media, or mixed media, or any other media that you have in mind to put on your page. But don't read me out as I continue to make these wonderful puns when it comes to paper and beat me up to a pulp. I got a bunch. I wrote a bunch down. Let's see what else did I write down. We're just scratching the surface. Okay, so picking your paper. Let's start with dry media. I think that's a good, safe place to start. The bottom of the barrel, the least expensive paper for the most part. I mean, I'm sure somebody might find well, you can just use something that you find on the street, but the most inexpensive paper, generally speaking, in an art store is newsprint. Newsprint paper. What is newsprint? Well, if you can't guess, it's the same paper that they use to print newspapers. Now, for some of you younger kids out there, you might not know what those feel like anyway, but it's a low tooth, very inexpensive paper. Okay, and what is it used for? Well, mostly students when they're doing gesture drawings or quick sketches or whatever. But in my opinion, I mean, unless you're planning on saving them and looking at your progress for these different gesture drawings, you might as well just use a dry erase board. I mean, this is hardly something that is archival to any degree. I mean, if you've ever seen a newspaper that was 15 years old, what does it look like? It's yellow, kind of crispy, right? Smells like rice-a-roni. It's weird. So newsprint is going to be the least expensive, bottom of the barrel paper that maybe it works for you and that's fine, but for me, rather than, I want to save a tree, I'm being green here. Save a tree, and I just use a dry erase board. And I know it's not the same. I know that there's something about learning a different medium and whatnot like that, but really at the end of the day, this is just an inexpensive paper for practice and experiment. I mean, it says right there, practice and experimentation with dry media. Okay, no wet media on this. Now, we're moving on up to the east side. Let's see, what order did I want to do this in? Okay, this is bond paper, okay? And actually, I didn't put this in here. This is a picture of a llama. Ming, you did a llama? Amy, nice work. All right, now we're actually showing art on artist problems. Okay, well, Amy did this. I didn't know that she was in my bond paper, but that's okay. Bond paper is even thinner than newsprint, but I think held to a little bit higher quality. It's not going to yellow, especially so we've got these Union Square pads here. These are acid-free. They're also lignin-free, which is one of those things that helps. One of those things that causes the yellowing over time. They are a cellulose paper, okay? So these are not a natural cotton paper, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But it's extremely thin and versatile. So one thing you can do, I'll just kind of show you, is treat it like a tracing paper. You can sort of trace right through it if you so desire. The other thing that's interesting about bond paper, because it's so smooth, let's see if I prepared. Did I prepare? I didn't prepare. Katie, willow charcoal? Gotta get ready for that charcoal. It's a real thing. Like, I don't want to touch it. Artist problems. Will not touch art supplies. Okay. Oh, you brought so many. Thank you, Katie. It's like, just look at the glove. I mean, just from holding it for a second. Okay, so, I talk about dry erase with the newsprint. With bond paper, it is so, why am I doing this over a llama? It is so smooth that if you were to, let's say, in your opinion, make a mistake or want to change something, you can literally just wipe it away, the charcoal, the willow charcoal. In essence, creating a dry erase board for yourself, right? Dry erase board. So bond paper, definitely don't want to use wet media on this. Very thin, will buckle. But, a good place to start if you're going to be doing a lot of quick little sketches. Yeah, I like it. I like it. I'm a fan. All right, put this away. Gonna save this for later. Okay. What am I doing? Who knows? All right. Now, we're going to talk about some of the two big ones, okay? You've got sketchbooks and drawing pads. Now, I don't know why one's a book and one's a pad, but what are the differences between the two, okay? Right here, this is a sketch paper, all right? Let's look at the stats here. 80 pounds, which means that a full ream of this paper weighed 80 pounds. That's how it develops the poundage. You look like you're falling asleep. Everybody in the studio is sick. Like, every single one, except for this whole Will. He's always healthy. Everybody else is like, oh God, my throat, I'm gonna die. We're that close.
Happy
Yeah.
Wednesday, everybody.
Happy hump day. We're filming on a Wednesday and we're having a late Taco Tuesday, so that means I'm happy. Yes, thank you. Yes, Taco Wednesday. So what the hell are we doing? What is this on? It's hot in here. Are you hot? I'm hot. Okay, can we turn the heat down? I'm schwitzing. Okay, you turned it off. Okay. All right, I'm still wearing this freaking glove. Okay, so 80 pounds, a little bit of tooth, mediocre tooth, not a lot. And you can find some sketch papers that have a little bit more tooth. You can find some drawing papers that have a little less tooth. But for what we're looking at, sketch paper. Now, if you create a masterpiece on sketch paper, is it archival? Is it safe? And the answer is yes, absolutely. Well, you might ask yourself, well, if I'm using dry media, and then here we have this heavyweight drawing paper. So this is 120 pounds. Let's get it. 120 pounds, okay? And let me just kind of, I want people to actually see what's, I'm crunchy. This paper has a little bit more tooth to it, and it's thick. Now, a traditional watercolor paper is 140 pounds. This is only a little bit thinner than a traditional watercolor paper. However, it is not sized for watercolor. It is sized for dry media. Can you use wet media on it? Yes. It is not going to be as stable as a watercolor paper. The color will not sit up on top of the surface because of the sizing being more absorbent in this paper. But to answer the initial question that I started 70 minutes ago, why would I spend more money, let's say, for a drawing pad if a sketch pad is going to be just as archival, just as safe? And the answer is, in my opinion, Jimmy, you are killing me. You're right in my line of sight, and you're like, thank you. This is never going to make the air. I don't even remember, what was I saying? The answer is resiliency, okay? A sketch paper, because it's thinner, it's going to give you a few less tries. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let me go get something that's not a pastel. Okay, so here we've got a juggling match. This is an 8B, so this is super soft lead, okay? This paper, you're only going to get so many shots with this little guy, okay? Whether you're using a kneaded eraser, a pink eraser, an eraser for artist shaped like an egg, whatever. That's a joke of our old copy. It was like perfect art for artist shaped like an egg. You're only going to get so many erases before you're going to start having problems. Okay, it's not as thick, and the paper will not necessarily withstand heavy application. Also, if you use a heavier hand, you're going to be denting the paper underneath. You can make a relief of what you just did if you were to take a pencil to it, because you're going to be pushing the paper underneath it. In terms of colored pencil, drawing, whatever, that smooth surface is going to give you a really nice place to do smooth gradients, or and when I add the color, you can really get a better feel for the texture there. You see that, Will? So sketch paper is great, has its place. You can make anything you want on it using dry media. But a drawing paper is going to be for those bigger projects where there is a lot more likely chance that you're going to need to take an eraser to it, or you might be using something a little thicker. Now, not all drawing paper is 120 pounds. This is a particularly thick drawing paper. But if you want to go into the world of markers, let's say, you want to make sure that that paper doesn't bleed. Now, when you think about a marker paper, what makes a marker paper unique is that more or less it just doesn't bleed, which means the color will not transfer. There's a red dot on my hand. I don't know what it's from. It's bumming me out. You don't have to show it, Will. It's actually Will panning up. Is it blood or paint? That's artist problem. Yeah, it's the original artist problem. Is it blood? See, I still have it. These problems. Okay, good. It's paint. It's paint. I don't know what it's paint from, but so if you're going to be doing a big project, most likely there's going to be a lot of line work involved, a lot of different layers involved. And if you're going to be working on multiple layers and building layers and removing layers and back and forth, you want a paper that can withstand the pressure of all that attention you're giving it. Okay, so the heavier drawing paper is good for that. All right. Now let's just kind of take a look here. Let's see. Pick a color, Jamie.
Red.
Red. Okay, red. So I am guessing that at 120 pounds, this will not bleed onto the page underneath it. Let's see if I'm right or if Jamie's wrong. Yeah. So you can see that it made it to the other side of this page, but not onto the paper underneath. Now this is not marker paper, okay, but similar kind of thing applies. It's going to prevent it from transferring to the page underneath so that you can continue to use markers on the pad. That should be simple enough. It should be, but it's not. I overcomplicate it. Okay, now that's your dry media, okay? You can use wet media, and when I say wet media, I'm referring to markers, watercolors, gouache, anything that there's water involved in, I guess is a safe bet. Or alcohol in the case of some of these markers. You will find that it will respond differently when you use the correct paper, okay? And the correct paper for wet media is going to be, and the starting point, so like we started with like the newsprint for dry media, the starting point for wet media is a mixed media pad, okay? A mixed media pad, again, is not watercolor paper, but it is designed to be able to take light washes without, overly buckling. And also it's designed to, do exactly what it says, mixed media. So if you're going to be doing any number of things, it's a multi-use pad. Now, what I'm going to do is get this fancy, expensive brush. Nice, wet and dirty. The way I like it. I don't even know what color this is. Ooh, this looks pretty. Oh, it's purple, Will. Okay. So, right here we have this mixed media paper. Color sits nicely. It looks good. It works. Okay, let's turn it over. Okay, not buckling, not bleeding through. I mean, if I did a heavy wash, it might start to buckle, but that's the same thing of just about any paper, unless it's like a 300-pound, really thick piece of paper. But that's what you can expect from a mixed media paper. Also, mixed media paper generally has a little bit of tooth to it. So it will take things like pastel, it will take things like charcoal, and all that good stuff. Okay, so let's finally get to what I was referring to as the watercolor paper. Let's get to the watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is made many different ways. Okay, this is going to be a higher end watercolor paper, which means it's cotton, not cellulite. No, it's cotton rag. It's going to be the most resilient. So if you think about cotton, I mean, it's got some toughness to it. It's going to be internally and externally sized. Now, I don't know if you guys have seen the video I did on how do I choose a watercolor paper years ago, but my test still stands the test of time. Is if you want to know if your paper is designed for watercolor, what was that? Okay, if you want to know if the paper is designed for watercolor, you need to lick the tip, okay? If it sticks to your tongue, that means that it's absorbent, okay? And that means that watercolor is going to be absorbed in. If it doesn't stick to your tongue, that means that your watercolor will sit on top. See that? Very little stickage, Will. You want to try? No? Okay, well. And watercolor...
We all got sick.
That's how we all got sick. Sharing watercolor tips with each other. And watercolor paper comes in all different shapes and thicknesses and surfaces. So, this right here I think is a cold press. There's rough, there's hot press, there's all different kinds of options. Now, we'll move on real quick because I don't know how long this is going to last and I don't know how much longer I'm going to last. So some of the more freakier stuff. Well, it's not really freaky. Printmaking paper, okay? What does that mean? Why would you want a printmaking paper? Well, if you're making prints, right? It's absorbent, soft, good for lithographs. It's good for block printing. This kind of paper is going to take the print well. You want to take a stamp to it, this is the paper to use, okay? It's going to, like I said, have that absorbency so that the ink from whatever kind of printing you're doing sticks to the page. Now, have you done it on Yupo? I do it on Yupo when I'm feeling kind of frisky. Yeah, like that. Yupo is, I think it was originally designed for the car industry to do like masks for decals or something. I don't know, but anyway, now artists use it, and it gives an artist some unique features. So let me just kind of do something on Yupo for you. All right. Pick a color, Jamie.
Pink.
Pink. I got watercolor up here. There's no pink.
Make a light.
I can do a pale red.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do pale red. Pink. Oh man, this is turning out kind of orange.
Okay. Orange is good.
Orange is good?
Yeah, I like orange.
Orange is the new pink?
Yeah. Yes, no.
Okay. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. It is, there is no absorption going on here, okay? It is sitting on top of that page because it's basically like plastic. I don't know how else to put it. The brush glides across, okay, which also makes it a little dangerous because it's easy to make mistakes. You have to take care when doing it on Yupo. It's, as they said, slippery when wet. Yeah. The other thing that I really like about Yupo, besides the fact that it's super smooth, it keeps the pigments looking really intense, is that it's super easy to lift off of it because there is really no absorption going on. If you want to come back and remove something, you can do so.
It's almost like your dry erase board.
It's also like your dry erase board, yeah. Yeah. L. Hey, L. Yeah. That's my daughter's name. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about is pastel paper because there are a couple of different options for pastel artists out there. This is here. Okay. Pastel paper. There is a traditional pastel paper, okay, which is going to be toothy, okay? It needs tooth to hold pastel. So this is a toned pastel paper. You can see that this particular pad, really nice, has these wax paper sheets in between to help protect because pastel's freaking mess from getting from one to the other. But just for comparison's sake, and I'm going to need another rubber glove for this. I don't know why I have to stare at you while I put this on, but... Ow! Okay, so we'll go into some soft pastel here. So you see the tooth through it. It's designed to grip that pigment and hold it as best as a paper can, okay? Because this will smudge easily. So that's another reason why there's that, like saran wrap in between, plastic wrap, to prevent it from transferring. Now, I want you to take close attention to the color intensity, okay? And I'm going to move over to a different type of pastel paper. This is just a traditional toned pastel paper. Now I want to talk to you about sanded pastel paper. Now, why would you want sanded pastel paper? I don't know. I don't know why you'd want to do anything with pastels personally, but that's not the point of this. My personal biases and predisposed paper bigotry. What makes a sanded pastel paper unique? Now, this is ultra toothy. Okay, this is the toothiest of toothy. Ta-ta toothy. I'm going to take the same pastel and lay it down here. Can you see how, because this paper is so toothy, it picks up almost all the pigment coming off of it? I mean, you can already see how much I've kind of carved into this. Your pastels will go faster using this, but that's just the price you pay for having those intense colors, and that's what the sanded pastel paper will do, is give you intense colors. So what's the point of going through all these papers? Well, it's important to know when you're going into your art what the end goal is. So, do you want to do a portrait? If you're doing a portrait, you might not want to use a rough paper. You might want something like maybe even Yupo or a hot press finish, because it's going to be just smoother. Are you going to be using a lot of wet media? If so, you're going to be doing yourself a much better service by going for the watercolor papers, or at least the mixed media papers, which are more resilient. So picking your paper wisely will yield better results in your art. Will markers bleed through? Will your paper buckle from the water? Those are things that you have to keep in mind and know before you get started, because you could potentially ruin your art.
I did not know beforehand that 80 pounds paper means that the whole ream weighs 80 pounds.
Yeah.
Is there a correlation when something says it's this many grams, like 120 grams?
Essentially, grams are just the European translation to pounds. So, in the United States, we talk about weight in pounds. In England, pounds is currency. So they use grams. So if you look at, that's a good point, William. If you look at a European brand watercolor paper like Arches, you'll see it's 140 pound, 300 grams. Got that, Will? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It means the same.
It means the same. Yeah, it'll just be a different, it's like, how much is my money worth in Canada? Probably not a lot. So the basic things that go into paper, at the core, you need to know what it's made of, okay? And there are, is it acid-free? What's the tooth going to be like? Is it sized appropriately for the medium you're using? Those are some of the basic things that you need to think about when picking your paper. There's a lot of P's in that. Have you had a paper mishap? Have you had something go horribly awry because you were not using the right paper? Let's share horror stories. It makes me feel better at night. I like to share the horror stories. Let me know. It's important that we all understand where I'm coming from. I don't know. We're not using this video. I've already decided. I'm not happy with it at all. We're not using it. Whether you like oil pastel pads or whether you like sketch paper, make sure that you like me on Instagram at Might Not Jerry. How about that time, Will? You saw it coming? Okay, it's okay. That's okay. We're not using this anyway. At Might Not Jerry, where I just put up a lot of random stuff that is designed to help your creativity or brag about how awesome my little girl is. That's what I do. It's essentially what it is. And some other little things. I actually recently posted over the holidays, photo of us in the studio, getting some things ready for Jerry's, little behind the scenes action. So if you want to get some behind the scenes action and all that fun stuff, follow me on Instagram at Might Not Jerry. And I am done. I am just so done. Everybody's assuring me that because they don't know anything about art supplies except for Jamie, that this was educational. So I'm hoping that those of you out there that are novices are getting a little bit of useful information amongst our bantering antics and silletry. That's wet. Well, I'm depressed. I don't. It's hard to get up here and demonstrate and have energy while you're watching somebody fall asleep on the side because they've been up all night working. So we did our watercolor. We dabbled with oils and, well, no, we didn't do any oils. No, we didn't, Will. Remember? I fixed it so that it wouldn't show that part. There was no oil pastels. This wasn't the oil pastel you were looking for. Let's see how strong that force is. Yeah, it's not going to work. We talked about erasing. We talked about tooth poundage, material sizing. Of course, tint is involved in some of these. You know, I showed you a tinted pastel paper. You can get tinted paper, and that is something that some people look for multiple reasons. One, if they don't want to stare at a stark white piece of paper, that kind of is a little easier on the eyes. Also, it can lead into very interesting looking artwork when you're not covering the entire page. You're letting some of that paper show through. That tinted paper has its place there as well. So these are all the wheels on the bus. And they just go round and round and round and round. I think I'm quitting after this. Like, I'm done. Yeah, I can't do this anymore. I'm too old for this. Literally half the page is me trying to make paper puns. And I didn't take the time to really go through and organize myself to go through the papers. I mean, I did a good job, you know, more or less going from like, this is the cheap stuff to this is the better stuff. But overall, I tried to do a pun on the word mache. It didn't work. Yeah, like replacing the word making with mache, it did not work. Yeah, none of this works.